And I hate to sound like that person, but the facts don't lie. And so how do we get our people put in position where they can acquire land and they can acquire property so that they have those proper assets to pass down to their children and grandchildren, where they can start to see that build of generational wealth?
Welcome to another episode of Entrepreneurship Exposed with your guy Beez, where we talk about everything related to entrepreneurship, but always with a twist of business acquisitions, right? And it's multifaceted, everybody. We got to look at the mentality of it. We got to look at the strategies, the tactics, everything that goes into entrepreneurship on a whole. And today, I think we're going to take a really good look at another aspect when we're talking about equity and access. We're talking about funding the future of education and behavioral health. And our guest today, Miss April Laster, is going to help us take us through that journey. So April, welcome to the show. Welcome to this episode. We are so happy to have you here. How's it going?
Thank you. I'm happy to be here. It's going very productive.
That's a good. I like that. Most people will say, "Oh, it's been busy, so busy is good," and I'm like, "No, busy is not always good, but productive is good." I love it. Awesome. So tell the audience a little bit more about yourself. You know who you are, what led you on this journey, and got you to where you are today.
So my name is April Laster. I'm the CEO and founder of Open Heart Leaders. And I'm the executive director of Heart Leaders Academy, which are two entities birthed out of my own experience from childhood trauma. So my nonprofit Open Heart Leaders focuses on full mental health and education wraparound services. Hence the reason why I opened my own high school here located in San Diego, California, to accommodate some of the things that were crossing the threshold of my nonprofit.
Oh, wow. I didn't know that. You opened your own high school as well.
Yes.
Wow. That's awesome. I mean, how does one even go about doing something like that? Like, what drove you to do that?
That is not for the faint at heart. The reason the topic today, having access to equity and accessible resources, is a major gap for African Americans, specifically African American women. We are at the low bottom of the totem pole. So this journey took being strategic with mentorships and partnerships that I obtained, and putting certain faces in the right places to get me in the door. But then meanwhile, I execute the leadership development and the plan. And so that is what it took.
Oh, I love it. You know, what's funny? It reminds me of something really quick. I was watching, I don't know if you know the comedian, Trevor Noah. And so he had a special that was released in like December during the holiday time. And I was watching it on Netflix, and there's a segment where he was talking about the song Sweet Caroline, and he said that white people love that song and how it just really, they could be doing anything else, and then all of a sudden the song comes on, and once it comes to the part where they say Sweet Caroline, everybody goes bop bop bop. So he said in his example of white people, they'll just be chilling and just hanging out, he said they'll just be talking like, oh yeah, business, mergers. And when he said that, I was like, well, why is it the stereotype that there's only white people that's talking about mergers and acquisitions and talking about, business on a regular basis? Like, you see how he used it? It's like, oh, they're just talking business, mergers and acquisitions. And I was like, well, why can't we change the narrative that we're also the ones that's talking about things like that, right? And that starts with the education side of it. Right. So it's amazing that you started your own high school because. Hey guys, okay, before we get to the episode, I just had to take a moment to say thank you to everybody that's been supporting Entrepreneurship Exposed. Your guy Beez here, and just having a great time having these conversations, showing you every aspect of entrepreneurship, because there's a lot of things out there that are, seems like all the glitz and the glam, everything looks good, but we want to make sure that you see some of the obstacles. Not things that will stop you, but just things that you need to know before you dive into this world of entrepreneurship. If you like this content, you like these videos, please just do me a favor and just make sure that you're subscribed to the channel. Make sure that you click the like button, comment on it, just tell me what you feel about each topic so I'll know how to adjust for other topics and have other guests on. And make sure that you hit the notification bell, because YouTube's kind of weird like that, and if you don't have that notification bell, even if you're subscribed to me, you won't see a lot of my content. All right, so if you would like to support us, that would be the best way. Thank you so much. Now back to the episode. All right, so it's amazing that you started your own high school, because I remember being in high school and thinking to myself, like, what are taxes? I heard people talk about taxes. How am I supposed to pay taxes? What if my mother was to pass away? I don't know what I would do, and I don't know how to operate in real life. And I'm shocked when I look back and say to myself, like, wow, I was actually asking those questions in high school. But it's because nobody was giving me that information. So I feel that it's critical that you're able to present that type of information, that financial literacy, the things that are not often spoken about in our community from as early as high school, even earlier if possible. Is that something that you're focused on as well in your high school?
I am. So one of the biggest things in my programming on the nonprofit side, we have a mentor program that caters for youth 14 through 18. So in my organization, we heavily deal with children who come from disenfranchised and marginalized communities. And typically these are children of color. And when I say color, everybody always assumes I'm talking just about our Black kids. No, I'm talking about our Hispanic population as well as our Asian and Pacific Islander population. Children of color, anything that's out of the typical standard of what we know to hold generational wealth and passed on accolades from different things. And so one of the biggest pushes is the best example to give my audience and to give my clients and to give my participants is for them to actively see the fight. We often read in history about the wars, but not many people are around to tell how they conquered the battle. Well, they see me in war, they see me in battle, and they see I'm a warrior. So they often get to live that life with me. They do life with me. I don't teach people life. They do life with me, and we learn as we go along. And so a lot of my participants, I don't just work with a child population. We deal with everybody from the womb to the tomb. And one of the biggest hurdles that I know in traditional communities who have not been able to access equitable resources to capital and financial gain is it's not taught. So how do I teach the 15-year-old about taxes and credit? Meanwhile, the mama got credit in the child's name that's already screwed. No, I have to go back and be like, let me get your grandma, let me get your dad, let me get your mom, your uncle, and your aunt. All y'all gonna go through this class. Nice. Because we need to break down the structure to build up. I have to put them in a position to help you, because at some point you're gonna need that cosigner. At some point you're gonna need that handoff. And I do that focused on the main entities that are required for people to have equitable resources, which we know is typically land, right? Black people are not homeowners in specific arenas. Specifically in California, it's not a heavily population of Black homeowners. More so in the southern states, you see it because it's been passed on and that land has just been passed on. But here on the West Coast, that is not a traditional state of mind. Everybody's a renter or on Section 8. And I hate to sound like that person, but the facts don't lie. And so how do we get our people put in position where they can acquire land and they can acquire property so that they have those proper assets to pass down to their children and grandchildren, where they can start to see that build of generational wealth?
Definitely. So I'll even say this, though. I want to add on to it that first, there's three major vehicles of creating wealth in this world. Real estate starts it all off. Everybody knows about real estate. It's tried and true throughout history, right? Even the man in history who was an African man, Mansa Musa, was because of the conquest that he did in more land overall, right? But there's also your financial markets, right? Your stock markets, your Forex, even your crypto now, right? And then the third one is business ownership. Whether you build it or buy it. Now, I advocate for people to acquire businesses because it gives you that head start, right? But those are the three major things. And here's the thing that I've found. Real estate's great. Obviously, like we said, it's tried and true. And you should have it as part of your portfolio, not because of the wealth it can create anymore. Instead, it's more because of the United States of America is not a country, it's a corporation, right? It literally is. And because of that, the laws are written to benefit corporate entities. So real estate is one of the best ways of deducting against taxes and things like that. So people will hold these huge real estate portfolios so that they could deduct all of the revenue that they made from their business and such, right? So knowing these things, knowing these strategies is extremely important for the future, right? But knowing that there's more than one major asset class to get into is just as important, because when people hear, oh, you buying a business, they're like, yeah, I never seen anybody do that before, so I don't know if I could do it. But if someone hears that, oh, I'm gonna buy a house, even if it's a little scary, they may say, okay, I guess I could do that. It's not as, I've seen other people do it, but it's still at a disproportionate number in terms of the Black community or people of color overall. So I hope that that's also part of your curriculum, the information that you're disseminating to the communities on, hey, there's other asset classes to focus on too. And some of them is a lot more easy than you may know. We're taught that those things are supposed to be difficult and above us, and that's not really the case.
It's not the case, but in true, I'm always true to who I am. I'm a sitting advisor to my mayor here in San Diego. I am a California rep for the National Small Business Association. I sit on several boards. The thing is, yes, a lot of those things are in arm's reach. A lot of those things are tangible and could be obtained. But the reality is, the policies, the legislation, and the paperwork has never been reassessed, has never been changed in documentation. Some of these real estate laws and some of these fiscal laws are still operating under the guise of what it was in the 30s and the 40s, when we weren't even allowed to walk in their banks. So how am I in a position where I have the means to acquire, I have the intelligence to acquire, and I have the support to acquire, but the paperwork still don't allow me to without all the red tape and hurdles? So I teach my people, and when I say my people, everybody is my people. I teach us those Commonwealth goals, but I'm also realistic about how do we have to make effective change in policy and legislation regarding how we have the equity and accessible access to these resources.
Yes. I love it. You ever read a book called Powernomics by Dr. Claude Anderson? Very interesting book, because he talks about, he's proposed a set of steps that in particular the Black community should take in order to improve our economic advancement and such. And in it, he talks about, from a political standpoint, he said it's not so much about voting. I'm not saying I agree with that, because I do believe you should vote. But he's saying that what the wealthy have been doing is not about their voting, it's about they're putting money into the politicians' pockets, and then the politicians owe them favors, and because of that, that's how they get the advancement and how they are able to make legislation acted towards their favor. What do you feel on that? Do you feel that in terms of the political landscape is still somewhat corrupted, and we have no choice but to play that game of basically buying politicians like everyone else is doing? Or do you feel that there's other ways around it that we can address it?
Well, it's not somewhat corrupted. It is corrupted. I don't believe in downplaying anything. It's corrupted. It's always been broken. And I believe that when we don't give the true context to issues, then we diminish our efforts in the fight, right? And so from the beginning, it's already corrupt and broken. So I gotta come in with a full-on fight. It's more of our people are not educated on how to even infiltrate the systems that were never meant for them to be involved in anyway. And so it would take a mass of educators and elders to reach back, start to teach, so that we can build up an intelligent structure of our young people. And when I mean young people, I'm talking about anybody who is 60 and below. That's what I mean. Young people.
There we go.
For us to have the mindset of how to fight these ongoing battles, not from a physical standpoint. And in some cases, yes, we are known to march, we're known to protest, we're known to stand in the gaps and be physically present. But oftentimes our intellectual standpoint to fight these battles is not equipped and not as sharp as others. And our emotional intelligence is often lacks in these spaces because we're coming from a place of trauma and hurt, and speaking about what was done to our ancestors and our people. We can't help but to feel that because we are actively living in survival mode of the consequences of us not benefiting from the things that they fought so hard for. So I believe that when you ask, is there a way, or no, that is my honest answer. No, if you were left up to me, I would say flatten this whole country and start over. But start over from the standpoint of who has the actual integrity, who has the actual intellect, and who has the actual ability to move us forward in what these fake constitutions and laws and flag songs that these people have created.
Oh, wow. That is powerful and truth. It is a truth. I mean, like you said, can't sugarcoat these things because otherwise we do diminish, the what it takes to combat it. I am one of the things one of the most powerful moments of my life was my son. He's actually at school in San Diego, and he when he was going off to college, he said to me, Dad, I found this sushi restaurant for sale. And he was like, can we buy it? And I was like, well, I don't really like restaurants. Why are you asking me about that? You want it? Like, you want to run it? You want me to help you to acquire it and it'll be yours? And he was like, yeah, girls love sushi. So, his thought pattern.
Listen, he had a plan. He had a whole
But here goes the thing with that, right? I told him that's not the best reason, son. However, that's a very powerful conversation that me as a Black man could have with my Black teenage son, that, we could just go acquire that business, right? So it's because he was exposed to it. It's because he's seen the path on how it can be done. It's because it became real to him when he sees his fathers acquiring businesses too, right? It's not a path that everybody has the access to. It's a lot simpler than you think, but it's still not something that is easy for us to get into for a variety of reasons. Right. But it starts with what you're doing right now by educating the young adults. And I know you said 60 and under, but especially them teenagers. It shows them a path of, I don't have to be a rapper. I don't have to be an athlete. I could be an investor, a businessman or something too, and still have an amazing life. So I love that. And kudos to you on that. And we need more people like you who are educating at that level. Although you're doing it across the board, because you got to involve the parents and the sisters and the brothers and everybody in it, or else, one of the things that I preach to is that you have to, I say, leave some people behind, right? And I know it sounds bad, but it's like when you say surround yourself, because I was on a journey as an entrepreneur when I first left corporate America, and I would tell my brother or my cousin, like, I'm going to do this. I'm going to invest in this course so I can learn more about e-commerce so that I can start a business, blah, blah, blah. And I'm going to liquidate a little bit of my 401k to do it. And they went ballistic on me. They were like, no, you can't do that. You can't, mess with your retirement funds, and you can't do this and you can't do that. And they didn't see the vision that I had. So if I'm going down a certain path and the people around me are telling me, no, don't do it, that, more often than not, people just adhere to it. And it's like, okay, yeah, it's not going to work. So I love that you're also educating their families and their community, not just the young adults, because it takes that whole village to really, know that, yes, we can uplift ourselves and take everything to a whole nother level.
We can, but that is why I think this equity and access and funding the future of education. We are the highest, according to the 2019 Census Bureau. African Americans are the only one who don't have a receipt deficit from the United States, meaning we acquire no money. When the Asian hate crime, they got a bill, they got funding. When the Indians, are indigenous people from there, LGBTQ even, and you see all of these things, but we are the highest in providing service, health and services to our community. So what that tells me is that Black people are going to always construct something to ourselves and we never get paid for it. That typically what happens. Most minority orgs that are headed by Black women, if you look at their pay grade and their pay salary, they are way below 0.01% of what the average white male CEO makes running a nonprofit. I like using myself as an example all the time. And because I'm a nonprofit, all of my stuff is public knowledge. I think I made $32,000 last year. And I run according to the numbers and services that we provide city and county wide, and from there, we're way a multi-million-dollar organization. But the money never comes to my organization. It goes to we call them the big five. The big five mental health corporations, insurance-bound organizations. When it comes to education, it goes to the big five education platforms and resources. Meanwhile, I am doing all the work, especially in our communities. We just had a natural disaster here in San Diego where we face the heaviest rainfall in the history of San Diego, the fourth time. And in that flooding, I watched a lot of our community come together and do what the city and the county was not doing. Me being a mental health provider and providing education, had to call the county like, what are you doing? Where are your counselors? Well, they're not equipped to services. If I got every Black person here in San Diego, we're only about 6% of the population of Black people here in San Diego, but we make up over 63% of the prison population. That's another podcast, another day. So we're 6% of the population overall in San Diego County. And out of that 6%, if 150 African Americans, just 150 Black people in San Diego went to the county who were on Medi-Cal, Medicaid and said, I would like an African American counselor, I would like that, they would not be able to service this. So out of over 150 counselors for the county of San Diego, they have 4 to 6 counselors of color. Tell me how that is equitable and how that is access for our people to get basic mental health and behavioral health needs covered when they're not seeing it delivered from people that look like them. Same with education. You know what I mean? Our school boards and our school systems predominantly are headed. I tell people, this is the structure of America. In my field, behavioral health and education is predominantly ran by white males between the age of 60 and 85. And it is managed by Caucasian women between the ages of 25 and 55. Tell me where a 41-year-old African-American woman with purple hair and a vibrant spirit fits into that equation in mental health and in education. I don't fit in. So here I come along with, I got a school, I built this nonprofit, I'm in the heart of downtown San Diego. This is unheard of. The people in our community still trying to figure out, how did you acquire over 10,002 square feet of property, Ms. Laster, in the heart of San Diego, we're in the most expensive city in the United States. And I just told you what I made last year. How am I living? How am I making ends meet? How am I keeping this building afloat? How am I keeping the school open? How am I keeping my employees paid? Equitable resources and access to larger. Visibility is one of the biggest killers of minority nonprofits. We're never put in the forefront of larger philanthropic funding. They support our causes and our missions, but they never see us as the entities that are delivering it. They support our causes and our missions. Yes, I support mental health. I'm going to give 5 million to NAMI. And we're like, no, you support mental health. Give 5 million to open heart leaders so that I can keep providing the services that I'm providing from a culturally competent standpoint and giving the people opportunity that are not getting opportunity in your spaces. That's what I mean by equitable access.
I love it. I understand that. So tell us, what do you feel? I mean, obviously you're already doing it, but what can people do more of in order to help right this ship, to, you know, right the wrongs that's happening right now in our society?
Number one, realize that it should always be about collaboration and not competition.
Oh, that's my favorite.
I am not here to compete with anybody else because I believe that my gifts were intended for me. That's why they were embedded in me. And the way that I execute it is only going to be the way that April can execute it. It has nothing to do with anybody else. So one of the biggest things that I believe that if people really want to help in situations there, believe the statistics, stop just acknowledging them and not moving on it. But if there are other people in positions to put our names in spaces where they know we belong and we deserve to be, that is what is going to move this needle forward. When people quietly acquire our heart's work, our services, and our visions and execute them out loud with other people and their funding and their backing, you slowly but surely chip away at our lifespan. This is my lifeline. And every time I give, if I'm not doing anything to replenish or fill it up, then I'm chipping away at my own lifeline. And so what people can do, speak truth to power. And if you are in position where you know of organizations like mine who are doing the work, we have the data proven, we have the contracts to show we're doing the work, but the math ain't mathing for what you see this org is getting and what this org is getting, but you're looking at like they're doing all the work. Start asking our question, why aren't you donating to that person? Why aren't you cutting a check to that organization and then asking for the results at the end? Why is it when it comes to our organizations and even with the federal, I've been batting them with federal level, why do we have to have these match for match grants? In order for me to get 2 million, I got to match your 2 million. Ma'am, I'm not, you blocked me out already. Or cost reimbursement type of contracts and grants. So in order for me to get this 250,000, I have to spend 250,000. Well, ma'am, I don't have 250,000. That's why I did the grant for the 250. It's like I have to prove to you that I have money to get money, but the purpose for the grant is to give money because you don't have the money. Catch 22, and I speak truth to power, and that's the kind of things I want to dismantle. Language has cost a lot of funding not to be acquired through my
This is a powerful conversation. I mean, this is something that, you know, on a basic level needs to be understood by our communities before we get to the, you know, more advanced things for sure. You know, I mentioned to you before that we do a segment called Pop, right, where we talk about the pros, opportunities, and problems related to the topic that we're discussing on the episode. I'm not sure how to pop this because there's you know, it's all this different, right? This is because this is something that, you know, there's no simple solution for sure, right? And we know the pros of if we do have proper equity and access, we know what that could lead to. Opportunities coming up potentially for it. Maybe we could start there because we also know the problems by not having it. It keeps us in this wheel that's just spinning that we can't get off on. And you know, it's difficult to break those chains in order to elevate as a community, because you mentioned collaboration over competition. That is something I preach fully, because I don't believe that the crabs in a barrel mentality is something that we should, you know, continue to perpetuate, because there's many of us that aren't. and then there's still a few that are. And I don't know how to combat that and how to help
There's a
others.
majority. There's a
The majority.
majority that
You're
are.
right. You're
There's
right.
a few of us that
I
are
gotta
not.
stop
There's a
sugarcoating things.
majority.
You're right.
Yeah, I cannot overlook that most African Americans that are living in today's society in this little land called America are operating from survival mode and not a living standpoint.
Maybe that's okay. I like that. That's something that it's enlightening when, as you said it to me, because it was like, why is it that our community so much in that crab in the barrel mentality, bringing others down? But when you say it, when you mention that a lot of us are living in survival mode, and in survival mode, it's like I don't got no time to elevate myself. I'm just trying to survive where I'm at right now. And if I'm
They've
trying to
only
survive,
been exposed to the barrel. Think about it.
yes,
Crab in the barrel mentality is because the crab has only been exposed to the barrel. Everybody else has lived outside of the barrel. So they've had access and exposure to what they can actually acquire and attain. If I am a whale and I've only been in the water, I don't know that there are trees and forests and mountains in all of the avenues of this land. I only know this water.
Yes,
You know
yes,
what I'm
yes.
saying? So when people say, well, why are people in the crab in the bucket? Because we only been in the bucket.
In the bucket. Oh man. Yeah, see, this I need to create a new segment for this discussion because this is something serious, but it goes so deep. There's multiple layers to it, right? It's like, I always marvel that who created this system, right? And did somebody really just plan this all out to say, okay, well, we're going to have this credit thing first, and we're going to make it in a way that it's not easy for people to get to maintain their credit, because if we put them in certain neighborhoods, we could do these type of things. And it's like everything just affects each other. And then, when interest rates are going up, then eventually it'll create some prosperity for the 1%, but then it'll cause a crash, which is a recession. And then when it has a to do this and do, it's like it's this wheel that just continuously operates. How do we break it? How do we
don't break it? Because we're not a hamster on the wheel. You have to realize we never were a hamster on that wheel. We are the little stuff they put on the bottom of the hamster cage that everybody poops and pisses on. That's what we are. We're not a hamster on that wheel. Those systems aren't made to include us. That's why I was like, we be fighting this recession in the markets, and that ain't even language and things that ever incorporated us. So why are we getting so high strung over it? We're not a part of that. It's not going to break because the rich stay rich and they want to keep the poor poor, and we are just casualties in their game of chess, checkers, and doggone ping pong. Okay, they done incorporated all them games together, and the problem is the moment that we start to realize that we are the greatest assets to this nation. When you look at most of the inventions and most of the things, they did not collaborate with us. What they did is we created and they stole. So we don't get the credit for what actually should have been not our ticket on the hamster wheel, but what should have been our ticket to own the cage that the hamster wheel is in.
Oh man.
But so, we never got that opportunity.
We never got the opportunity. That is the truth. That is it. I have a fraternity brother. We used to have, is my line brother too. So, love him to death, but we didn't agree on a lot of things. And he used to say to me, he told me that there's institutional racism in this country. I was like, how could you possibly say that? He said, Beez, man, if you've made it, you've done great. I've done great. So ain't nobody can tell me that anybody else can't do great. And I was like, listen, I understand what you're trying to say. However, I'm 45 right now, and what I eventually was able to figure out and break the chains and to elevate through, my white counterpart was doing at 16. So, there is disparity. There is, systemic racism that's built into the institutions of this country. But the question is how and what do we do? And, often a lot of people say, yeah, there's nothing we can do about it. It's just is what it is. I would never agree with that. There's always
I don't know your fraternal brother, but if I was privy to y'all's conversation at that time, I probably would have told that dear Black man that I think you are confusing equity for equality. You had an equal opportunity to do the same as everybody else, but you didn't have an equitable opportunity. Your
Yes.
outcome is exactly what it intended to be because you had an equal opportunity. But the equity's not going to be, it ain't equity. And that ain't even a word. I just would have told him, brother, that ain't it. Because even with your degree and even with your stature, you and your white counterpart can walk into that same office, and I guarantee you they're going to offer you a lower salary of at least 4 to 6% than your counterpart, Caucasian male that got the same degree. And you may even have the higher GPA and more of the accolades. But the society and world history tells them that he cannot be beneath you because of how viewed superiority over our race.
Wow. Ooh, that is powerful and true. And I wish you were on that conversation with him. Because back in the day, we had that conversation maybe like almost 10 years ago. And I remember, I was still a little bit hot-headed. I was like, what are you talking about, man? Like, I was getting a little hype and whatnot. But sometimes it's better to just calm down and just have a spirited debate so that he can't say anything else. Because in the end, he was like, man, you just want to argue with me. I was like, I'm not arguing. I'm just telling you the truth. This is what it is, blah, blah. So I wish you were there to help me with that conversation.
Two simple words. I think you're confusing equity for equality.
Yes. Awesome. All right. So, April, I don't listen. This conversation could go on for a long time because there's a lot with it. And even me, who I promote business acquisitions, I've had situations where, like there was one last year where everything was looking good until 3 days before closing on the business, and the seller brought in his attorney, and his attorney was like, I don't think you'd be a good fit for this community. And I was like, oh, okay, I see. I know where this is going. And it ended up blowing up the whole deal. But, this is something that we could, at length for sure. And I definitely want to have you back on for another, portion of this discussion. But I want you to leave the audience with, at least two main takeaways from both the equity and access side, as well as the educational side and the behavioral health side. So if you could give us 3 main takeaways around those topics, that's the most important thing the message that you want to leave to people. I think they would love that.
I think the first thing I would want to leave with people is follow the statistics and not your heart all the time, because the statistics never lie. The second thing I would leave with is, in the world of education and behavioral health, the main thing, as I'm going to keep repeating, that diminishes organizations like mine is lack of visibility to funders and philanthropists who actually support the causes that we do. And the third thing I would want to leave is, we're only a phone call away. And simply understanding that art can equate to work, value, and productivity, also will remain standing longer than some of the names that have been around for centuries who have never benefited the causes that they receive funding for.
Wow. Here we go. Tell me this. Are you, I'm sure you're familiar with impostor syndrome.
Mm-hmm.
Do you also to help people like counsel through that, address that? Because I believe that a lot of people in our community are faced with a form of imposter syndrome. They believe that they're not good enough to do it or not capable of doing it. And I'm always like, why? Nah, I believe I can do anything. I'm just ready to go. So how do people combat that? I know we extended the conversation for a little bit, but that's a big one.
I combat that by subjecting them to reading material and imagery that tells them they can. So what happens is we are subjected to what we are accustomed to seeing visual effects in our communities worldwide, commercials, music, and that. You have to start with reconstructing the mindset of self-esteem and understanding how to cultivate their own internal gifts. Once you get a person to do that, it is very hard to create imposter, to have an imposter syndrome mindset, because you are now very confident in your gifts that have been cultivated, that have been validated, and that have been accepted by those that you actually do life with.
Ooh, I love that. I love that. Well, then I got to leave us with a book recommendation, which is the book recommendation that I tell everybody anyway. But it goes exactly what you just described. So have you ever heard of somebody named Reginald Lewis?
Sounds familiar, but
So Reginald Lewis is in essence the Jackie Robinson of business, but he's the first Black billionaire in America, and most of us have never heard of him ever at all. And probably in 2005 or so, I read a book called Why Should White Guys Have All the Fun? And when I read that book, it was the story of Reginald Lewis. It was how he became a billionaire through acquisitions. He acquired this business called Beatrice International Food, and it was $1 billion company, and that alone made him a billionaire. And he acquired it using leveraged buyout strategies, LBOs. So it's not like he had $1 billion to go pay for it. He deal structured and things like that, which is what other communities have been doing forever. So I think reading that book and seeing a man that looked like me, who came from even more humble beginnings than I did and all, and seeing what he was able to accomplish, it's the exact description of what you just described on how you combat imposter syndrome. I believe that helped it for me as well. And that's what made me feel that, yeah, I can do this too. And I saw someone else do it. And now, I'm showing others how to do it. So I believe that's something, a charge that I would give for everyone in our community, is to, continue, first of all, get rid of the crab in the barrel mentality. Forget about the competition. We want collaboration. Connect with places like Open Heart Leaders so that we could get the message out, so that we could help more people. Donate to Open Heart Leaders, places like Open Heart Leaders, so that they can grow more, so that they can help even more people. And let's make it the norm. Let's change the narrative that, like Trevor Noah did on his thing, saying that, oh yeah, white people just hanging around. There's business, mergers and mergers. Yeah, no, it could be us doing that too, right? We just hanging around, and that's what we ain't talking about Shade Room and World Star Hip Hop on IG. We talking about, oh, there's this business I can acquire, like my son did when he was going to school and all of that. That's what we need to do. That's how we continue to elevate. Miss April Lester, thank you so much for coming on to Entrepreneurship Exposed. You have been a gem to this episode, to our community, to our people. And I look forward to working with you further and helping your organization to grow as much as I can as well.
Thank you so much. I enjoyed this conversation. It was healthy and it was a pleasure.
Same here. And so just so that we know, and I'm gonna put it in the description below, but can you just let everybody know the best way to get in touch with you, the best way to work with Open Heart Leaders? Is it on IG? Is it on a different platform?
Yeah,
How do we
we're on several platforms. So Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn at Open Heart Leaders. Our website, www.openheartleaders.org. Is the best way to get in contact with us. And that is that the main organization hub kind of gives the branches of my octopus. It kind of tells you the other avenues in the lanes that we do here. That's how you have access to the school information, Heart Leaders Academy, as well as in our concurrent, our active ongoing fundraisers. We have one huge one coming up in May 25th. May 24th is Open Heart Leaders Day countywide in San Diego. May 25th is our first Heart to Heart Gala, where we are trying to raise $325,000 to service 50 formerly incarcerated or justice impacted people for one free year of counseling, where I'm trying to collect the data on that to see how we can combat reducing recidivism when we give our men and women a true opportunity to receive mental health services. I actually booked attorney Esley Merritt. He is my keynote speaker and World Changer Award recipient. And so this is kind of my test to see how San Diego responds when we call people to action who actually say they support mental health services for our incarcerated population.
Awesome. Well, we'll make sure we put all the information below so we can get the word out and share it to our entire network for sure. But thank you again for the work that you do. Thank you for this information, this conversation. And I'll see you on the next episode when we're going to go even further into it.
All right. Thank you for having me.
Thank you, April. Take care. All right, everybody. I already know what to do. Make sure that you have liked and subscribed to Entrepreneurship Exposed. Make sure that you don't miss conversations like this. Make sure you're subscribed on all podcast platforms as well as on YouTube so that you can actually watch our beautiful faces as we are having these conversations. All right. I will see you all on the next episode of Entrepreneurship Exposed. Let's go.